This is CBC Here and Now.
Today, I'm very sad to report that a person has passed away due to COVID-19 in the Eastern Health Region. This is the 5th COVID-related death in the province.
But it's the first death since the arrival of the variant virus.
Today, the daily number of new cases declined, but Dr. Fitzgerald warns we're not out of the woods yet.
It was a pretty horrendous day.
She sat in a car not knowing when she would be seen.
A COVID patient spends hours waiting to see a doctor.
Tonight, her family wants to know why she wasn't seen sooner.
Another area of low pressure moves in tomorrow. That's going to be a messy day, and as we head towards the weekend, things will start to quiet down.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Peter Cowan.
And I'm Carolyn Stokes. We begin tonight with a sad milestone.
Well, there's now a 5th death in this province from COVID-19. Health officials would only say it's a man who's over 70. Dr. Janice Fitzgerald says it's a reminder of how serious this disease can be.
Remember that we have 6 people in hospital right now due to COVID severity, as well as a family that has lost their loved one. Please keep them in your thoughts. Each life lost is a tragedy, as well as a stark reminder of why our way of life has changed.
Well, today the province announced just 8 new cases of COVID-19, the lowest in more than a week. There were 34 recoveries today, so the active cases continues to fall. There are 345 active cases right now. As you heard Dr. Fitzgerald mention there, 6 people are in hospital, 3 of those are in the intensive care unit. Well, last night on Here Now, we told you about patients at St. Clair's Hospital who contracted COVID while they were in the hospital. Well, today the health minister says he wants to assure people it's safe.
There are cases of positive patients with COVID who in actual fact were admitted for other reasons than COVID. The method of how they got the disease is not clear for some of them, and it's still currently under investigation. It is, however, contained. There's been no evidence from public health or infection prevention and control of any escape, and there is no outbreak at St. Clair's.
Now, there are lots of questions about when vaccines are going to roll out in this province, and also when we might ease out of Alert Level 5, especially for areas outside of Eastern where we haven't seen community transmission of the virus. Well, Dr. Fitzgerald says answers to both those questions are coming on Friday, but she does say just because we haven't seen cases in areas doesn't mean the lockdown wasn't needed.
Had we not done what we did, we might be seeing a very different situation across the island right now. So, and this is the paradox of public health. When we do things and they work, people think we didn't need them. But I would caution people against that line of thinking, because we have no idea what would have happened had these measures not been put in place.
Well, a Mount Pearl husband and wife whose family is caught in the grips of this coronavirus outbreak is speaking out tonight. Their adult daughter is very sick with COVID, and yesterday she waited hours outside of the Health Sciences Center to be seen during a medical emergency. Well, tonight they're telling their story in the hope that it won't happen to anyone else. Terry Roberts has that story.
This is new territory for Bob and Elizabeth Noseworthy of Mount Pearl. 2 retirees who should be enjoying their golden years. But instead, they were going before a camera today to express their deep dissatisfaction with the health system.
It needs to be fixed. I want it fixed.
It was a pretty horrendous day for her husband, and for the whole family.
Their daughter is Erin Noseworthy, a French immersion teacher here at Mount Pearl Senior High, which is ground zero for this outbreak of the coronavirus variant. Erin was diagnosed with COVID-19 on February 16th, has been sick ever since, and on Monday things only got worse. Erin Noseworthy and her partner came here to the Health Sciences Center in St. John's, where staff in the emergency department told them to wait in their car, and that's just what they did. For 3.5 hours with no access to a bathroom, and Erin in deep medical distress.
We had a very stressful day. We had a very long day waiting, not knowing how ill our daughter was. She's our child. She's an adult, but she's our child. And I hope no one else has to have such a stressful day as we had, just not getting care that they need.
If you could see how sick our daughter is and wasn't admitted, you would have to wonder, how darn sick do you have to be in there?
As the hours passed, the frustration and fear grew for Erin's parents. They started calling politicians for help. It seemed to work.
It was probably the most difficult day that I have ever had.
Worried that others may have a similar experience, the Noseworthys decided to share their story.
I would have expected that within short order, she would have been in through the doors, somewhere to isolate. I would have expected that someone would have taken her vital signs. I would have expected that she would have been triaged, and none of that was done. She sat in a car not knowing when she would be seen. You know, if the beds are full, people have to wait. But that's not good enough right now. In this outbreak that we have.
This Facebook post from last March shows just how afraid Erin was of the virus, describing herself as vulnerable and at risk. Her fears have come to life. So now, instead of teaching her students today, Erin Noseworthy is dealing with the coronavirus, and on top of that, pneumonia, and is now resting at home.
She's not well at all, and she's not sick enough to be in hospital. That tells me that this virus is very, very serious.
Terry Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
Eastern Health did get back to us less than an hour ago with a statement. It says normally COVID patients are put in a special waiting room, but yesterday the Health Sciences experienced a high volume of COVID-19 positive patients referred from 811 or the Respiratory Assessment Clinic. As things got busy, it meant there were instances where some patients were asked to wait in their vehicles. Now, those patients were provided a telephone number to call if their condition changed or worsened. The health authority also says it is critically important that COVID-19 positive patients do not expose other vulnerable patients, staff, and physicians. Well, point of entry testing for people going to Labrador does not look likely. Labrador leaders have been pushing the province for additional testing since the recent outbreak. The Chief Medical Officer of Health met with Labrador leaders yesterday, and Labrador's Affairs Minister Lisa Dempster was there. Now, Dempster refused to say whether there was a firm decision made, but does say leaders were given a number of reasons why point of entry testing isn't being done. For example, the tests can produce both false negatives and positives. She says alert level 5 already discourages non-essential travel around the province. Well, 2 missing snowmobilers who were last seen yesterday afternoon heading to Nain have been found. According to police, one of the young people was found in the Voisey's Bay area. It's not clear where the second person was located. Crews from Nain, Hopedale, and Natwashish, along with dozens of volunteers, helped with the search. The 2 young adults set off from Natwashish on one snowmobile. Police say they've been taken to Nain for medical assessment. Well, farther south in Labrador, a Port Hope Simpson dog sledder says wolves are getting more brazen than ever. The animals have started stealing the seal meat William Russell leaves out for his dog team. Now, he's worried they might attack his dogs. Russell says normally at this time of year, wolves have moved away from the area, but he suspects they're sticking around because they're hungry. Now, the province did issue a release today warning the community to keep pets indoors as wildlife officers and local trappers patrol the area.
A relatively mild day today for parts of the province. A mild start to the day as well. 0 degrees in St. John's, and then into the minus single digits towards the west coast, and minus teens for most of Labrador. Temperatures not moving too much this afternoon, only reaching 0 or a degree above for most areas across the province. A little cooler for the northeast, and then we've got those temperatures well above where we should be sitting for Labrador yet again today. Minus 4 was the afternoon high in Labrador. So that area of low pressure that brought all that messy weather to us yesterday has moved offshore. And we did see some increasing cloud. It's going to set the stage for some flurries as we head through the overnight tonight, but the winds are going to stay breezy for tonight, certainly in the east, with gusts upwards about 50, maybe 60 kilometers per hour. Then another area of low pressure moves in tomorrow, and that's going to ramp those winds up yet again. I'll have those details coming up.
Well, at the beginning of this week, 185 positive COVID cases were linked to schools in the St. John's metro area. Now, we couldn't tell you which 22 schools were affected because Eastern Health wouldn't say. Well, tonight, teachers want more details about how far the virus has spread within the school system, and they're calling on stronger precautions for classrooms going forward. Here Now's Heather Gillis has more.
2 weeks ago, CBC News requested a list of which schools had confirmed cases of COVID-19 amongst students and staff. So far, Eastern Health has refused to give any specifics. It will only say that, as of Monday, there were 185 cases of COVID-19 in 5 high schools, 4 junior high schools, and 13 elementary schools in the St. John's metro area. 145 of those cases, nearly 80%, are linked to Mount Pearl Senior High. In Ontario and Alberta, those numbers, as well as the names of each school in the region, are made public, and they're even listed online. The head of the province's Teachers Association wants to know specifics for this province.
We do know, again, anecdotally, of approximately a dozen teachers that have been confirmed in one of our schools, Mount Pearl Senior High, but we haven't heard official confirmation from that.
The health minister says there is a list of affected schools, but says Eastern Health, Public Health, and the school district are still discussing that information with their stakeholders. Ingram says he wants to know how schools have been affected by the virus,
including what's known about the role of interactions at school, but also various school-sponsored activities as source of transmission.
The province's chief medical officer of health says spread happened through schools, sports, and social activities, but says they don't have details entirely mapped out.
As they sit down now, as things are slowing and they get to sit down and really look at these numbers and dig deep into that, we'll have a better story about what the transmission looked like, what the epidemiology looked like, and hopefully soon I'll be able to tell that story.
And then there's the back-to-school plan. Ingram says he's been raising red flags since the summer that schools have lesser public health measures in place. He wants tighter restrictions.
And we would hope that government and public health officials are seriously considering a plan to enhance the current safety measures in schools to prevent transmission, which must include reinforcing the importance of physical distancing and stronger mask requirements.
Meanwhile, the Federation of School Councils isn't sold on the push to publicize the names of affected schools.
I don't think that's going to prove anything or going to help anybody. I think that may be a stigma that will be in some smaller communities, and certainly we don't want that on our young students. And
Dr. Fitzgerald says she will have an update on Friday, but right now she says it's too early to make predictions about what will come. Heather Gillis, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, after CBC pushed for more information, we can now give you more details. At 5:30 today, Eastern Health did release the names of the 22 schools where students and or staff tested positive for COVID-19. So let's take a look. As Heather said, 145 of the 185 cases are students or staff from Mount Pearl Senior High. The remaining 40 cases are distributed among these schools. Now, Eastern Health says that these numbers don't distinguish whether a person attended school during their infection. Many of these cases, it says, were identified early in the outbreak.
Well, the president of a union that represents many healthcare workers in this province is applauding efforts to protect seniors during the ongoing pandemic. Questions are being raised about this province's vaccination rollout, but NAPE President Jerry Earle believes it's working well for the most vulnerable people. Mark Quinn reports.
NAPE President Jerry Earle has first-hand experience with long-term care. He started his career working at a facility in Carbonear. He says the spike in cases after the new variant was identified here would have put those facilities on high alert.
That really heightened those concerns of those workers.
With the numbers of new cases reported daily declining,
we have 8 new confirmed cases of COVID-19 in our province.
Earle is praising efforts to keep seniors' homes safe.
We've been able to keep the COVID other than one fair we had, I believe, in St. Lawrence last year, all those facilities, kudos to the frontline staff, the collaborative effort that we've been able to keep it out of all those long-term care facilities. And that's kudos to the frontline staff, non-union, non-management, that have done a tremendous job.
Long-term protection is expected to come from vaccines, and people in long-term and personal care homes have been prioritized.
By Friday of this week, we will have administered a vaccine to every resident of long-term care in this province who wanted it and who is eligible. By the end of this week, with regard to phase 1 essential healthcare workers, everyone in Labrador Grenfell will have had at least one dose. By the week's end, by Friday, we will have had everyone in Western and Central Health who falls into that category with a vaccine in their arm. And by March the 5th, Eastern Health will have done all of their rural essential workers in addition to their metropolitan ones.
Haggie says the plan for the next phase of vaccine rollout is expected to be announced Friday. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, in some non-COVID related news, St. John's City Council and staff met virtually and voted unanimously to take a closer look at developing vacant land into affordable housing earlier today. The group discussed 5 different plots of land, parcels that had previously been identified by city staff as suitable sites. While today's discussion was about getting the ball rolling, figuring out how costs and how to get public input. Land on 5 different streets is under consideration.
This work to identify these pieces of land was done some time ago, and the note is now only coming forward. Again, these are potential sites, not necessarily committed to, but sites that we've just identified early on as vacant land, and then some of the analysis that you referred to in terms of the public engagement, the engineering, the geotechnical, all that would have to be done to see whether or not they would be suitable sites. So again, the Boring Park one has been identified as having some challenges as well, yes.
Now, one piece of land is further along in the process than the others. 28 Eric Street is being proposed as a site for Habitat for Humanity. There will be a virtual town hall to discuss that project next Wednesday.
We could get groups of people, like the Special Olympics or the classroom with the kids, everyone was just really enjoying it. And then COVID came along.
Well, coming up after the weather, adapting to COVID. We'll see how one artist in Western Labrador has adjusted his business over the last year because of the pandemic. Hi, Ashley. Time for a look at the weather forecast. And the temperatures were pretty mild out there today, but with all the snow, it felt like a real sloppy kind of day out there.
Yeah, temperatures sitting a little bit above zero means we saw lots of melting snow today, certainly here in the east. I took Drizzle for a walk earlier and got splashed by a few cars on my way to the park. But it feels nice, feels much nicer than it has the last couple of days. Let's take a look at those daytime highs. 1 degree in St. John's, 0 as you head towards central, and then a little cooler for the northeast. St. Anthony sitting at -2 this afternoon, and then again we're seeing those mild temperatures through most of Labrador. -6 was the afternoon high in Happy Valley, Goose Bay, and -11 in Nain. So the area of low pressure that brought all that sloppy mess to us yesterday has moved offshore. Saw a few lingering flurries earlier today, but some clouds are on the increase for the west coast, and that'll generally be the story as we head through the overnight tonight, looking at the potential for some flurries for the northern peninsula as well as along the west coast. A few flurries towards central, but overall things should taper off after midnight, and we should actually see some clearing skies into the evening or into the overnight hours as well. Some flurries possible for the west and northern portions of Labrador as well as along the coast. And you're looking at light winds generally. Temperatures will be on the mild side, but still sitting a little bit below zero across the island. Southern areas looking at anywhere from -1 to -3, a little cooler as you head towards central northern peninsula into those minus double digits, and then similar temperatures towards Labrador as well. Lab City, you're going to be sitting at -18 overnight tonight. So the first half of the day tomorrow looks actually pretty nice. We should start with some sunshine at least. And then the next weather maker will move in. Things will be a little bit different than earlier this week, or at least yesterday, because temperatures are going to be a little milder, or starting milder than they were last time. So anywhere really where we're going to see those temperatures above zero, we could potentially see this start off as either rain or snow. But as that low tracks a little bit further north and east, we're going to see the wind shift, and they'll be more northerly, so things should change over to snow through central and even parts of eastern Newfoundland as well as we head through the afternoon hours. And then into the overnight, we'll see most of eastern Newfoundland seeing either rain or drizzle through the evening hours and then into the overnight. But that snow will continue for most of the island otherwise into the early part of Friday. So temperatures tomorrow, like I said, around 3-4 degrees for most, a little cooler for the southwest, hovering around 1 degree. And then a nice start to the day for the northern peninsula, -2, plenty of sunshine. You'll see your flurries move in into the overnight hours. But again, those winds will pick up as well out of the southwest, anywhere from 50 to as much as 70 kilometers per hour. And then we're looking at flurry activity for most of Labrador, but again, mid-minus single digits, and then a little bit cooler for Lab City at -15. So as far as snowfall totals, looks like a good 5 to 10 centimeters is a good bet. Locally, we could see upwards of 10 to 15 centimeters through central, but most of the avalanche should be looking into that 5 to 10 centimeter range. So that's a look at tomorrow's forecast. We'll look ahead coming up.
Thank you very much, Ashley. We've had some decent weather lately, and many of you have jumped at the chance to get outdoors. Shake the smell of the house off you.
Yes, and take in the fresh air. This week we've been asking to see what lockdown life looks like for you and your family, and tonight we'll show you some wintry ways to have fun.
Yes, sliding is such a classic winter activity, and if you don't have a great hill nearby, you can just take a tip from Jessica Rubia and her family in Pasadena. They shoveled the snow in their backyard into a sliding hill for their kids.
Oh, nice.
Cute.
That looks like fun. If hills aren't your thing, maybe you can get a ride in an old-fashioned sled. This is Kian Wallace Butler, all bundled up in paradise. Look at that face. Thanks to Mom Jamie Lee for doing the pulling and the picture taking.
Mom always ends up doing the hard work. How's this for creativity? Lynn Lynch and daughter Asia have been filling their front yard with colorful Inukshooks. They're building those out of ice. That's a clever.
Yeah, it's beautiful too. So we've seen sliding, snow sculptures. How about some ice fishing? Carla Smith sent this picture from Port aux Basques, a couple of little trouts holding a few little fish.
Hope they're not relying on dinner from those two. And lastly, if going outside isn't your cup of tea, how about an art project? Mary Power Dumphy painted this outstanding portrait, and I think everyone knows who that is. That's Gordon Pinsent. In the character from the film The Grand Seduction. It would take many, many lockdowns before I mastered anything even close to that. So congratulations for that masterpiece.
That is incredible. Thank you so much to everyone for sharing those fabulous photos.
Yep, we'd love to see yours. Email it in nlphotos@cbc.ca, and we'll have more of your lockdown pictures coming up on tomorrow's show.
Tonight, we're shining the spotlight on Labrador City. Marty Byrne is an artist there, known for his pottery and ceramics. A few years ago, Byrne opened a studio in his garage, but the pandemic means he's had to change the way he operates. Video producer Daryl Din put together this look at how Byrne is adapting during COVID-19. And just a note, this piece was recorded before Alert Level 5 restrictions came into effect.
Is Marty Byrne. I'm a potter. I'm a ceramic artist. You know, before COVID, we could get groups of people like the Special Olympics or the classrooms of the kids. You know, everyone was just really enjoying it. And then COVID came along, and all of a sudden, the events were halted. Nobody could go in anyone else's bubble. So I had to adapt my business because crafting was even more important then, because everyone was so isolated. So what I did was I changed my business to go with that, and I got these curbside craft kits. And I did up the bags, and I put the craft in the bag with the colors of paint and a brush and a little instruction sheet, and they would pull up in their car, pop their trunk, and I'd have everything sterilized, and I'd lay it in the trunk with the rubber gloves on and close the trunk, and off they would go. Right over here we have my very first potter's wheel, and this is what I started on. It's a kick wheel, but it also has a motor, and that was 3 or 4 years ago. And over here is a shelf where I dry my pottery that I make at first, and some of it is glazed in the back. And some of these pieces are for an art show that I have coming up at the Newfoundland and Labrador Craft Council Gallery in St. John's. The theme of that show is it's called Labrador Erratics, and basically it's my Northern Lights glaze with it's kind of contrasted with IOC iron ore concentrate. So it's a little snippet of Labrador West specific art with pieces that were made in Labrador with iron ore concentrate from Labrador. Okay, so this piece is the first piece that I made with the idea for this show. And basically what I did was I took iron ore concentrate from the mines and I mixed it in with the clay. And this clay on bottom is an earthenware clay, and it's a low fire clay. Now this here is my Northern Lights glaze, and I made a ribbon of clay, but this is a stoneware clay, and it's a higher fire. So essentially the idea is the beauty of the Northern Lights contrasted against kind of like a stark, rough, you know, kind of Labrador West with the industrial kind of a feel to it. So another way that I had to change how my business operated was I used to go up to the hospital and I used to visit the long-term care residents, and we would sit down and we would do crafts together, and it was super nice and I loved doing it. But when COVID came down, we couldn't do that anymore. So what we did was we switched over to like a FaceTime or like a Zoom, whereby I would sit at the potter's wheel and I would make a craft, or I would like basically do something like this, which I did yesterday with the seniors, and they watched me on their TV up there and they could hear me on the speaker, and I know their names, and we always have a few laughs and that kind of stuff. So this is for their Valentine's event that they have coming up in the hospital, and this is just a little vessel for holding their Valentines, and basically I made it while they watched, and And then we got together again and I painted it and we chatted. And so it's just one way that even though COVID was restricting us, we adapted and we still had a bunch of fun. One thing that we've been doing here annually is we've been doing what I called an art wander, outdoor art show. And what I did was, well, there's so many wonderful artists here in Labrador West. I wrote them all and I said, I want to organize a art show and we're going to do it outdoors. Would you like to be a part of it? So that has grown over the past 2 years. And what it did was it gives an artist of any level, we could have had it was open to everybody, even little kids. If they wanted to make a little sculpture or do a little drawing, they were more than willing. And what it did was it gave local Labrador West residents a chance to share their art and come out for an afternoon and walk around in nature and enjoy art. I think everybody has a certain amount of creativity, and I think if you have an interest and you are willing to dedicate a bit of time to trying it, all of the information is out there with the internet like it is. Like, you can learn a million different ways to be creative. So if you just got a little bit of interest with that little bit of creativity and you just put it all together and you stick with it, I think you'd be amazed at what you can create.
Very talented. Well, our thanks to Daryl Din for that item. An exhibit of Marty Burns' work is planned for April 23rd in St. John's at the Newfoundland and Labrador Craft Council Gallery.
Call this election unprecedented, which is probably a bit of an understatement. Never before have the methods of votings and dates changed so much. In fact, we still don't know when the results are going to be released. And all of this raises some legal issues. Lyle Skinner is a lawyer who specializes in constitutional issues. He's been watching this election closely. He's in Ottawa. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So when you look at all the changes that the Chief Electoral Officer has made, including like scrapping in-person voting altogether, is it in fact legal, all of these changes that he's made?
It's a great question. Some changes are, and some changes maybe not. Under the Act, the Chief Electoral Officer has the ability to adapt the conduct of an election in the event of an emergency or unforeseen or unusual circumstance. And there's no question that the election in Newfoundland and Labrador is under an emergency situation. But what he can't do is alter the ordinary polling day, in part because that's also set not by him, but it's set by cabinet when the election was started. And so the nub of one of the issues to look at is, did the Chief Electoral Officer exceed his authority by indefinitely suspending ordinary polling day? And another thing to look at too is what impact on Newfoundland and Labradorians' charter right to vote does the cancellation of in-person voting have?
Yeah, because there are some people who weren't able to either make it by the deadline, had trouble filling out the forms or getting them in on time, who might have normally been able to go and vote in person, but now just simply aren't going to vote.
Exactly.
Now, one of the things that I've heard a lot of people asking for is, why couldn't we either just cancel the election or kind of put a big pause for like a few months and just kind of restart it? Is that something that either Bruce Chalk could have done, or the Premier through the Lieutenant Governor, who started this whole election, could have kind of like hit the undo button?
The short answer is no, but I should qualify that by saying that this is not a constitutional crisis. It's just simply the design of the Elections Act is that presently, under the law, once the Assembly is dissolved and an election starts, there's no way to go backwards. There is no remedy to go to the Lieutenant Governor. Once the Lieutenant Governor has decided to grant the Premier's request for dissolution, they can't step in mid-process to put a halt, and neither can the Chief Electoral Officer. So, however, going forward, there are two ways. If the results, when we know on when the voting results are announced, that this could proceed either through the courts or a political solution where the political actors themselves could say, we're not comfortable with the outcome of this election, and we could advise dissolution again for a second election. And that's not unprecedented in Newfoundland. It happened in 1909 and also in 1972 at the end of the Smallwood era. So those are some considerations. But in either case, what's important for your viewers to know is that the Elections Act in Newfoundland and Labrador does need to be fixed before there's any contemplation of going back to the polls, to avoid a Groundhog Day scenario where the situation that has occurred in the current election could potentially reoccur in a future election.
Well, interesting. I appreciate you sharing your insights with me today.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Returning now to today's medical briefing, 6 people are now in hospital due to COVID-19. During the Q&A with reporters, Dr. Fitzgerald was asked about hospitalizations and whether or not that number is expected to grow.
We know with this disease that there are certain percentages that will be hospitalized. Certain percentage with severe disease will end up in ICU, and unfortunately there will be a certain percentage of deaths that are associated with that. That's been pretty standard throughout this whole pandemic. There are some reports that this variant may actually lead to more severe disease and potentially deaths as related to this variant, but that information is relatively new. We did have a lot of young people proportionately in this outbreak, so that certainly I think will play some influences to the number of hospitalizations and severe disease that we see. But the expectation would be that we'll see, based on our numbers, we may see anywhere from 10 to 20, and I guess that's what we have to be looking out for. But I think our system will be able to handle that.
The farmers of Bonavista Bay, the people coaxing a living from the soil next to the sea. An archival special, Sunday at noon and Monday at 7.
Well, here's something that may make you smile. We have an update on a story we brought you last year. In February 2020, we introduced you to Pickles the kitten. He was a very special kitty because he was born with his hind legs essentially on backwards and could only walk using his front legs. Staff at the CBS Animal Hospital were caring for Pickles until he found a forever home. He was dubbed Pickles because he was in a pickle due to his physical constraints and needed a loving owner who'd give him lots of extra attention and care. Well, Pickles found that owner, and 1 year later, Pickles the cat is healthy and happy. We checked in with owner Brittany Farrell.
Pickles has certainly grown since last time you saw him. He is now a solid 8-pound little boy. Pickles has definitely grown into his personality. He is a very bold, confident, funny little guy. And actually, since the last time we've spoken, he has become a big brother himself. He has a little kitty brother named Tempton now, and they get along excellent. He wants to get down now, so I'm going to put it up for a second. he's crooked. So Pickles was diagnosed with bilateral tibia amelia. So basically, his back legs are backwards and they don't work. They don't work properly. So he kind of like how we describe it is he hops like a bunny. So he used a lot of his upper strength, his upper body to push himself up. Last time we spoken, his upper body endurance has been so much stronger. One time he wasn't able to get on our kitchen chairs. Now he can actually pull himself up. So day by day progressing. Pickles is stubborn. People say he gets that from me. No, he's stubborn, but besides that, he's a very bold kitty. And what I mean by that, he is a risk taker. He's a little bit risque. He sometimes gives mom lots of heart attacks. And he's a happy-go-lucky kitty. And whenever I'm in the kitchen, he hears food opening. He's very happy. He absolutely loves food, anything. Since today, health-wise, he's been doing very, very well. He's been very, very successful. Not much issues to date, knock on wood. Every day he never ceases to amaze me. And whoever comes visits before level 5 that wasn't COVID, he always puts smiles on people's faces. So I think we're doing okay. I know when we put our application in to get Pickles, knowing the condition, I won't lie and say I was not nervous. I was petrified starting off. I didn't know what to expect, and all I wanted to do was give him the best life possible. My advice for people who do or are considering getting an animal who does have special needs, as we would say, go in with an open mind, be patient, be understanding, and just be compassionate and go with them. Be on their level day by day. It is a wonderful experience. And they give so much love, the unconditional love. And not to repeat myself again, but I'm just so proud to be Pickles' mom. I love Pickles with all of my heart.
Well, back to some COVID news, but at least it's good news today from south of the border. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration say Johnson & Johnson's COVID vaccine is safe and effective. The finding released today sets the stage for a final decision on the single-dose vaccine. A panel of independent experts will meet Friday to decide whether the FDA should approve the shot. Johnson & Johnson says the vaccine was 72% effective in U.S. trials and 57% effective in South Africa, which has been dealing with an outbreak of a new variant of the virus. The company also says the vaccine is 85% effective in preventing severe cases of COVID-19. Johnson & Johnson has applied for regulatory approval from Health Canada. That application is under review. The federal government says active cases of COVID-19 are declining in First Nations communities across the country, but there are currently more than 1,400 active cases on reserves, and there's growing concern about the spread of variants among those who are more vulnerable because of poor living conditions.
It wouldn't surprise me that we get confirmation that there are variants of concern in Indigenous communities. The potential consequences can be devastating.
Miller says vaccinations are now underway in 440 Indigenous communities and more than 100,000 doses have been administered.
Welcome back. Police in Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island, responded to a rather unusual call this weekend. Reports of a slippery suspect scooting down a city sidewalk.
Yeah, we got a little strange call. First one of my career. We got a call of a seal.
Just got up, ready to make my coffee, and I looked out the kitchen window, and I looked, and here was this seal traveling down the sidewalk here. And I went into panic mode and grabbed my phone and called 911. And then I just said, there's a seal traveling down Patterson Drive on the sidewalk. So I said, I'm going out, I'm going to stay with him till you send the police.
We approached the seal, realized he was in good health at this point, contacted Department of Fisheries officers. With their consultation, we made the decision that we were going to take the seal into our custody and transport it back to its natural environment.
I don't think he was too happy. He was, I think, probably cursing at me in seal language, but I just said, we're going to take care of you, don't worry about it, just, and then he at me, like he was just like either help me or like get lost.
He was feisty. Yeah, he was a little feisty, not real cooperative, but myself and a few other officers got an emergency blanket out of the rear of the patrol vehicle, and we wrapped the seal in it and placed it in the back of our vehicle. We then transported him down to the waterfront area around the bottom of Haviland Street, and we placed him in the water, back to his natural habitat, and away he went.
It turned out great. No one got hurt, and the seal was okay, and happy ending story.
And we love happy endings.
So many great animals on the show today.
Yeah.
We had Pickles the cat, and we had, well, I don't think the seal has a name.
Seal. Yeah, very curious seal.
He does
must
now.
Be.
Went into Charlottetown, did a bit of shopping, hung out and headed out back around the bay. So, speaking of
This weather update is brought to you by the Healthcare Foundation Home Lottery. Order tickets now at hcfhomelottery.ca.
Ashley is back with a look at the long-range forecast. So we're in for some messy weather tomorrow, but how is it looking as we head into the weekend?
So after that low moves off, we're going to get into a cooler day as we head through the day on Friday, which means we'll probably see some snow. Taking a look at the future tracker, or at least we will see some snow, that will continue through most of the day on Friday. As that low pulls off, though, we're going to see some onshore flurries develop along the west coast, and then eventually some snow will move through, or at least light snow will move through for most of the eastern areas of the island. Then a ridge of high pressure will move in late day Friday. That's going to clear things out and keep things generally clear for Labrador. And then as we head into Saturday, a beautiful Saturday in store, but it does look like those temperatures are going to dip right along with that. And then we'll watch our next weather maker move in for Labrador anyway on Sunday. So taking a look at the forecast for Friday, there's your temperature. So dipping back down below zero. Hovering in and around that for eastern areas, but -1 for St. John's. But again, that risk of light snow will continue. And then for Labrador, flurries the story. For coastal, a little bit more sunshine in play as well as you head towards central Labrador, -12 for Happy Valley Goose Bay. So back down to those near seasonal temperatures or seasonable temperatures, -15 in Nain and -16 for Lab City for your Friday. Now into Saturday, temperatures are going to dip back down to the minus single digits for the island, but take a look at the temperatures in Labrador, back into those minus single digits, -3 for Happy Valley Goose Bay. Plenty of sunshine in store for most of Labrador, maybe a few cloudy periods, and then again that snow will move in for Lab City, and plenty of sunshine, the story for the island. Those flurries for St. John's, that'll be in the morning, and then things will clear out quite beautifully into the afternoon. But as we get into Sunday, that's when the next weather maker moves in. Temperatures again bumping up above zero, so we could see some rain in play. And then by Monday, things will clear out. Late day, we're looking at temperature near -1, and those overnight lows generally well below zero right into the beginning of next week. Central Newfoundland, you're looking at sunshine on Saturday, and then again that same transition from, or at least some potential for some rain in the mix on Sunday. Monday, some sunshine and +1, and then we're going to continue to see the same, essentially the same forecast for Western Newfoundland, and again those overnight lows into the minus single digits. For Eastern Labrador, after we get past that minus 12 degree day on Friday, the rest of the weekend and into the beginning of next week actually looks pretty nice, but that will be light snow for Sunday. We could see some accumulating snow there. -3 will be the afternoon high, and then we'll see a similar forecast for Lab West as far as temperatures go, but it will be more gray with the potential for flurries in the mix. I had to share this photo. Take a look at this one. So Pasadena Beach looks like this. This is the ice patterns thanks to some of the waves that are bringing some of that ice on shore. Great shot there, Shelley. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And if you have any weather photos to share with us, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Thanks, Ashley. Wow, looks like shards of glass on the beach there. Peter, so we're not expecting a briefing tomorrow, Thursday, but Friday should be a really interesting day, right? What are we expecting to find out on Friday?
Yeah, because Friday is going to mark 2 weeks since that level 5 lockdown that we've all gone into. So
the circuit breaker.
Yes, so they promised to reevaluate that, and so we'll get some hints about whether or not they'll be lifting measures, especially for areas outside of St. John's where we haven't seen those cases of COVID-19 despite some widespread testing. And I know a lot of parents are wondering, well, what's going to happen with classes? Are they going to stay online into next week? Because again, the decision was only made up until Friday. So I think as they make decisions about what else opens up, schools are going to be on a lot of people's minds. Plus, vaccine rollout. We are expecting the plan for when people in different groups will be able to start getting vaccinated. So it's going to be a busy rest of the week.
Yeah, it's going to be a big one. Thanks so much, Peter, and thanks so much, everyone at home, for joining us tonight.
Have a great night.